The first thing I remember is the sound. Not the words, not the accusations, but the soft, shaky tremble in my own voice as I apologized for something I didn't even do. I can still hear it thin, fragile, breaking in the middle like a thread pulled too tight. And I remember her face, my sister-in-law, Alina, sitting across from me with her arms folded, chin tilted up, the faintest smirk hiding at the corner of her lips. My husband, Mark, stood behind me that day, one hand heavy on my shoulder as if guiding me like a child, whispering, "Just say sorry, babe. It's not that deep. Make peace." Peace. That's what I thought I was doing. Until 3 days later, when I opened my phone and saw myself on the screen, my shaky apology uploaded to social media, chopped, edited, twisted into a story I didn't recognize. A story where I was the villain. A story told by the very woman I apologized to. A story that would turn my quiet life into a storm I never asked for. But before all that, before the recording, before the lies, before the confrontation that changed everything, there was just me. Just my home. Just my marriage. And a family I desperately wanted to belong to. I suppose I should start there, before the unraveling. Back when things still felt warm and safe and possible. Mark and I had been married for 3 years. Not perfect years, no. We had arguments about the usual things: laundry, groceries, his late-night gaming, my tendency to worry too much. But we weren't unhappy. Or at least, I didn't think we were. We lived in a small but cozy townhouse on Willow Drive, the kind with a creaky wooden staircase and windows that fogged up every morning no matter the season. I used to love wiping the glass while the kettle hissed on the stove, watching the neighborhood wake up. Kids on bikes. An old golden retriever chasing no one in particular. Mrs. Henderson watering her plants in that same faded pink robe she'd probably had since the 80s. It was a simple life, but it was mine. And I held onto it with both hands. Alina, my sister-in-law, was a constant presence in that life. Sometimes too constant. She was the kind of woman who could walk into a room and immediately make you feel underdressed. Even on her lazy days, she somehow looked like a brand ambassador for effortless style. Long curls, perfect eyeliner, and a voice that could sound sweet or sharp depending on who was listening. Mark adored her. In a way I never fully understood. She practically raised me. He'd tell me whenever I questioned why she inserted herself into everything, from our dinner plans to our arguments. She's all the family I've got. And I believed him. I believed both of them. Because I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to fit into their little two-person world. I wanted them to see me as part of the family. And for a while, it felt like I was getting there. Sunday dinners were my favorite. We'd gather at Alina's apartment. She lived just 10 minutes from us and cooked together. Or rather, I cooked. She supervised. Mark taste tested. She had this clean, minimalist kitchen, white marble counters, soft yellow under-cabinet lights, and always a faint smell of jasmine from whatever candle she had burning. I remember the way the light hit her hair when she laughed. The way Mark leaned forward every time she spoke. The way I sometimes felt like a guest in my own marriage. But still, I tried. I smiled. I chopped vegetables. I washed dishes. I told myself that this was normal, that closeness between siblings was good, that love wasn't a competition. Looking back now, it's strange how denial can feel like comfort. The day everything shifted was a Tuesday. A soft, rainy one. The kind where the world feels hushed and a little slower. Mark worked from home that day. I made us lunch, grilled cheese with tomato soup, nothing fancy, and we sat together at the dining table. He kept glancing at his phone between bites. Eyebrows pulling together. "You okay?" I asked. He sighed. "It's Alina. She's upset." My stomach tightened the way it always did when that name came up with that tone. About what? He tossed his phone down on the table like it had personally offended him. "I don't know. Something you supposedly said last night." I blinked. "Last night?" "At dinner." He gave a frustrated nod. "She thinks you talked down to her. That you were dismissive." The word stung, mostly because I spend my entire life trying not to be that. Trying to be careful, gentle, thoughtful. "I didn't say anything remotely dismissive," I whispered. "I know, babe." He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. But she's really sensitive right now. You know how she gets. I did know. Alina cried easily, angered quickly, held grudges fiercely. What should I do? I asked. He didn't hesitate. Just apologize. Calm her down. It's easier that way. The kettle clicked off behind me. The rain tapped against the window, and I felt my throat tighten, not from guilt, but from something else. Something heavier. Something I didn't have the courage to name yet. Still, I nodded, because that's what I always did. I made peace, even when the war wasn't mine. When I arrived at Alina's apartment later that afternoon, she greeted me with a silence so pointed it felt sharp around the edges. She sat on the couch with her legs crossed, scrolling on her phone like I wasn't even there. Hey, Alina, I said softly. She didn't look up. The kettle whistled in the kitchen. Steam curled in the air. The jasmine candle burned quietly on the coffee table. And something inside me wilted. Alina, I tried again, stepping closer. Can we talk? Slowly, painfully slowly, she lifted her eyes to mine. About what? I swallowed hard. I could feel the apology rising in my throat like a knot I couldn't untie. About last night. Her eyebrow arched. Oh? That? She leaned back, folding her arms. I clasped my hands together in front of me, something I only do when I'm nervous. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. Truly. If I said anything that hurt you, I didn't get to finish. Because her lips curled into a smile. A small, satisfied one. Good, she said. I accept. Something felt wrong. Very wrong. But I didn't know how wrong until 3 days later, when her video, my video, appeared online. Edited. Narrated. Weaponized. And suddenly, I wasn't just a sister-in-law. I was the villain in her story. The liar. The manipulator. The toxic wife. And everything I thought I knew about loyalty, about family, about my marriage, began to crumble. Slowly at first. Then all at once. I didn't find the video right away. It found me. A notification popped up while I was folding laundry on the living room floor. The sun was setting, spilling warm gold through the blinds, and I remember how peaceful everything felt right before my phone chimed. You've been mentioned in a post. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe a tag from an old college friend. Or a cooking group I'd commented in once. But when I tapped it, my heart stopped. There I was, standing in Alina's living room. Hands clasped, voice trembling, apologizing. Except the video wasn't raw. It wasn't full. It wasn't real. She had cut it into pieces, sharp pieces, and stitched them together like some grotesque quilt. My voice played on loop. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. It was my fault. I know I hurt you. Words I said, yes. But not in the way she arranged them. Not with the tone she implied. Not with the captions she plastered over my face. Toxic wife tries to manipulate her sister-in-law. She acts sweet in public, but insults me behind closed doors. When confronted, she crumbles and plays victim. There were thousands of views already. Hundreds of comments. People I didn't know calling me selfish, dramatic, abusive. And the worst part? I didn't even realize she had been recording. There was no visible phone in her hand. No camera pointed at me. No hint, no warning, no consent. Just betrayal. A small gasp escaped my throat, and I felt my chest cave in. I held the phone so tightly my fingers ached. Mark, my voice cracked. He was in the kitchen reheating leftovers. When he walked out and saw my face, he wiped his hands on a towel and rushed to me. What's wrong? He asked. I handed him the phone. I watched his eyes widen. I watched his jaw tighten. And then, I watched him exhale in a way I didn't expect. Not angry. Not protective. Tired. Look, he said softly, I know it looks bad. Mark, she recorded me without telling me. She recorded you apologizing, he said. Which is normal. She probably just wanted. I don't know, clarity. Clarity. My voice rose before I could stop it. What kind of clarity comes from cutting my words and posting them online? He didn't answer. He didn't touch me. Didn't pull me into his arms like a husband should when his wife is falling apart. Instead, he sat down on the couch and rubbed the back of his neck. Just don't overreact, okay? I stared at him, feeling like the world had shifted under my feet. Mark, I whispered, why are you defending her? He didn't look at me. He just shook his head, frustrated, tired, distant. I'm not defending her. I'm just saying. Alina's emotional. She clearly felt hurt. And what about me? He stood up abruptly. I don't want to get in the middle of this. But he was already in the middle. He put himself there. He put me there. And now he was choosing her side by pretending he wasn't choosing at all. After that night, everything changed. Mark became distant in small, precise ways. He no longer sat beside me on the couch, just across from me. He no longer asked how my day was. He no longer reached for my hand in the dark. Whenever his phone buzzed, he angled the screen away from me. He stepped outside to pick up her calls. Sometimes I'd hear his voice through the bedroom wall, soft, gentle, apologetic. Words I wanted. For myself. I tried to tell myself I was imagining it. That stress was talking. That the video would lose traction and disappear. But things only got worse. Comments flooded in daily. People reshared the clip with their own reactions. Some mocked my voice, calling it fake tears. Some analyzed my apology like I was a criminal hiding confessions between my breaths. Every time a notification pinged, my heart flinched. I stopped opening social media altogether. I stopped going out for groceries unless absolutely necessary. I stopped sleeping well. The video played behind my eyelids every time I blinked. And Alina? She didn't call. Not once. Not a text. Not a question. Not a sliver of remorse. But she did post more content. Indirect quotes. Vague captions. Stories about two-faced women and gaslighting wives and protecting your peace when family betrays you. Her followers ate it up. They sent her heart emojis. They called her brave. And through it all, my husband stayed silent. I was drowning. He was watching. She was feeding the storm. The moment that shifted everything happened on a Friday night. I woke up around 2:30 a.m. The room was dark, the only light coming from under the bedroom door. Mark wasn't beside me. I slipped out of bed and padded quietly across the hallway. His voice floated from the living room. Low, soft, almost comforting. I paused outside the door. Yeah, he whispered, she's really upset. No, she won't do anything. I know, Alina. My heart stilled. Alina. Always Alina. I leaned closer. No, she won't find out, he said. Just delete the originals. She's not tech-savvy. She won't know anything was edited. My breath caught. Delete the originals? My blood turned cold. I stepped back, bumping lightly into the wall. The frame hanging there rattled softly, and Mark's voice stopped instantly. The door opened. He stood there, shoulders tense, phone in hand. What are you doing up? He asked. But I'd heard enough. More than enough. Something in his eyes told me the truth before he ever said a word. He knew. He knew she edited the video. He knew she twisted it. He knew she weaponized it. And he wasn't telling me because. Because why? At that moment, I didn't know. But I would find out soon. And when I did, I wouldn't be the same woman anymore. I didn't confront Mark that night. Maybe I should have. Maybe that would have saved me weeks of bruised silence and sleepless nights. But something inside me shifted the moment he said, just delete the originals. A small, sharp thing in my chest, like a thin blade of clarity. It told me to wait. To watch. To stop taking everyone's words as truth and start looking for the truth myself. I went back to bed and lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft hum of the refrigerator downstairs. For the first time in our marriage, I felt like I was sharing my house with a stranger. Not because he lied, but because he felt comfortable lying. The next morning, Mark acted normal. Too normal. He made coffee, even added the cinnamon the way I liked, something he hadn't done in weeks. He kissed the top of my head when he walked past me. Another gesture he'd long stopped doing. It should have comforted me. Instead, it felt like someone was trying to patch a leaking dam with a napkin. Sleep okay? He asked casually. Not really, I said. He looked genuinely puzzled, like he had already forgotten the late-night whispering with his sister. But I hadn't. The conversation replayed in my mind like a broken record. Just delete the originals. Why would he tell her that? Why would he protect her instead of me? Why would he choose silence over truth? I watched him sip his coffee, his eyes half-lidded with sleep. Once, that view felt like home. Now it felt like a warning. I knew I needed evidence, something real, something solid. Not just a suspicion hanging on a midnight whisper. So when Mark left to run errands that afternoon, I sat at the dining table with my laptop. My hands trembled slightly as I pulled up Alina's video again. The comments were worse now. These manipulative women always play innocent. She's definitely abusive. The husband deserves better. I closed my eyes, breathing through the ache. I forced myself to look again. Frame by frame. Second by second. And then I saw it. A mirror hanging behind me in the background. In its reflection, faint but clear enough, a phone. Propped against a candle holder. Angled directly at me. She hadn't been holding it. She'd set it up beforehand. That wasn't an accident. That wasn't a misunderstanding. That was planning. And Mark knew. Because he'd told her to delete the originals. My heart hammered so loudly I could hear the pulse in my ears. I leaned closer to the screen. If there was a mirror reflection, there had to be something else. Some clue she overlooked. I clicked through her old stories, posts, clips, everything she'd shared in the past week. And then I found it. A story she posted 2 days before the apology. A simple screenshot of a new phone stand she bought. The same one sitting on her table in the reflection. My breath caught. She didn't just record me. She prepared to. This wasn't emotional impulsiveness. This was calculated. That night, my suspicions dragged me somewhere I never expected to go. Into Mark's study. Into the drawer he always kept locked. He wasn't home yet. He'd started coming home later these days. Sometimes he smelled of cigarettes even though he didn't smoke. Sometimes jasmine perfume clung faintly to his sleeves, a scent I knew from Alina's apartment. I hated that I recognized it. But tonight, his carelessness ended up helping me. He left the drawer key in the bowl by the door. As if he assumed I wouldn't dare look. My hands shook as I slid the drawer open. Inside were old tax papers, receipts, a couple of notebooks, and a small external hard drive. My pulse quickened. I plugged it into my laptop, praying silently for answers, or maybe for closure. What I didn't expect was a folder labeled A. Just the letter. But my stomach twisted the moment I saw it. I opened it. Inside were dozens of video files. Timestamps. Most of them were normal recordings, family events, Mark's old work presentations. But 4 of them were from the exact day I apologized to Alina. For raw clips. Untouched. Unedited. Uncut. My breath hitched as the first video opened. There I was, standing awkwardly in the living room. Before I even started apologizing. The phone already recording. Audio captured clearly. Alina's voice. Sharp. Irritated. Just stand there. Mark said you wanted to talk. Mark. Not me. Another clip. Her pacing back and forth, complaining loudly to someone on the phone. Calling me dramatic. Calling me insecure. Another clip. I walked in, looking lost, confused. She smirked at the camera before turning to face me. And the final clip, the apology. The real one. Where I said, I'm only apologizing because Mark asked me to. I want us to get along. I never meant anything badly. Words she'd cut out. Words she didn't want anyone to hear. I covered my mouth with both hands, tears blurring my vision. The betrayal wasn't just hers. It was his. He had the raw videos. He kept them. He let her post the edited ones. He let me drown online. He let strangers tear me apart. He let me believe I was alone. Because in his mind, protecting her mattered more. That evening, when he finally came home, later than usual, I was sitting on the couch with the laptop open in front of me. He froze when he saw the screen. The raw video paused at the moment Alina smirked at the camera. Something in his face shifted, panic layered beneath guilt. Where did you find that? He whispered. In your drawer, I said, my voice steady in a way I didn't expect. You kept this. You protected this. I can explain. No, I said. Not this time. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. She just gets emotional. I stood up slowly. She edited my apology. She humiliated me. Thousands of people think I'm abusive because of her. I know, and you helped her. He stopped, completely still. His silence was my answer. He didn't deny it. Not even once. I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt something inside me collapse. Not like a sudden shatter. More like a quiet folding, the way paper folds when you press it too many times. You chose her over me, I whispered. He didn't say it, but his face did. I closed the laptop. Not because I was done, but because I was just getting started. He watched me with a mixture of fear and confusion. "What are you going to do?" he asked. I took a breath, deep, steady, grounding. "I'm going to show everyone," I said softly. Not out of revenge. Out of truth. And as I walked past him, he didn't stop me. Maybe because he knew he couldn't. Maybe because guilt held him still. Or maybe because deep down, he knew he deserved what was coming next. I didn't sleep that night. The clock on my bedside table glowed 3:14 a.m. The curtains swayed with a faint breeze from the cracked window. Somewhere outside, a dog barked, one of those lonely, late-night cries that seemed to echo a little too perfectly with the ache inside you. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my body still, my mind racing. Not with anger. Not with revenge. Not even with grief. With clarity. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, everything felt sharp. Focused. Grounded. I knew what I had to do. Not scream. Not fight. Not beg Mark to choose me. Just reveal the truth. Let the world see what I saw. Let her own actions speak for themselves. The next morning, I took a deep breath and opened Mark's laptop again. I clicked through the raw videos carefully, making sure to copy every file, including the ones with the mirror reflections and her unguarded expressions. Then I found something I hadn't noticed before, a fifth video. Short, just 16 seconds long. It showed Alina adjusting the camera, leaning forward, checking the angle, and whispering, "Perfect. She'll look pathetic from this height." My stomach flipped. This wasn't insecurity. This wasn't misunderstanding. This was cruelty. Intentional. Precise. Cold. I copied that file too. I knew I couldn't go through this alone. Not emotionally. Not mentally. So I called the one person who had always been in my corner, my older sister, Jana. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey," she said, her voice warm with sleep. "Why are you calling so early? Is everything okay?" I swallowed. My voice cracked despite every effort not to break. "Jan, I need you." She didn't ask another question. "I'll be there in 10. And she was. She showed up at my door in pajama bottoms and a hoodie, hair messy, eyes alert with worry. She hugged me before even stepping inside. "Tell me everything," she whispered. And I did. Every detail. Every lie. Every clip. Every whisper behind closed doors. Every moment I felt invisible in my own marriage. When I was done, her eyes were glistening, not with pity, but with fury. "That woman recorded you without consent," she said. "Mark hid it from you. They humiliated you publicly. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is character assassination." "I know," I said softly. "So what's the plan?" I hesitated. Then I opened the laptop and showed her the raw files. She leaned in, watching with her jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle twitch. When the clip of Alina whispering, "Perfect. She'll look pathetic from this height," played, she exhaled sharply. "Oh, she's dead," Jana muttered. I couldn't help it. A small, exhausted laugh escaped me. "No," I said. "She's going to expose herself." We spent the next couple of hours planning. Not chaos. Not drama. Strategy. Carefully worded. Emotionally grounded. Truth-focused. "I think you need to speak," Jana said. "But not like her. No editing. No fake captions. No insults. Just the raw videos?" I asked. "Raw videos," she nodded. "And your voice. Calm. Collected. Firm." I nodded slowly. I wasn't a fighter by nature. I didn't like conflict. But I knew this wasn't about vengeance. It was about reclaiming my voice, the same voice she tried to turn into a weapon. We set up my phone on a tripod in my living room. Soft, natural light streamed through the window, warming the room in quiet gold. Jana straightened my hair softly, like she used to before school picture days. "You're not doing this to attack her," she whispered. "You're doing this to defend yourself." I nodded. She tapped record. And I began. For a moment, my throat tightened the same way it had the day she recorded me. But then, something loosened. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe strength. Maybe both. "My name is Sarah," I began. My sister-in-law posted videos of me apologizing to her. The clips were edited. The apology was manipulated. And the truth was hidden. I paused, took a breath. This is what really happened. I inserted the first raw clip, Alina adjusting the camera. Then the second clip, her whispering about wanting me to look pathetic. Then the third clip, me walking in, confused, unaware I was being recorded. Then the full apology, not the chopped, weaponized version she uploaded, but the real one where I said, "I'm only apologizing because Mark asked me to. I want us to get along." I kept my voice steady. No anger. Just truth. I am sharing this because my character was damaged publicly. And since the attack was public, the correction must be public too. I ended with, "I hope this brings clarity." Not vengeance. Just clarity. Jana pressed stop. She looked at me for a long moment. "You did good," she murmured. "Really good." Posting it felt like holding my breath under cold water. Every part of me shivered with fear, not of Alina, not of Mark, but of the world. Public opinion can be cruel. The internet unforgiving. People jump to conclusions faster than they breathe. But truth, has a way of cutting through noise. I uploaded the video. Within minutes, comments poured in. Some angry, some shocked, some apologizing for believing the wrong version. But the most surprising reaction? Silence. From Mark. From Alina. Total silence. Not even a denial. And real silence is often louder than any words. He came home late again. But this time, he didn't walk in casually. He rushed. He found me at the dining table, sipping tea. "Why would you post that?" he asked, breathless. I looked at him calmly. "Why did you hide the originals?" He flinched. "I didn't want things to get worse." "For who?" I asked softly. "Me? Or your sister?" He closed his eyes. And that silence, that tiny, broken silence, told me everything. He wasn't protecting me. He was protecting her, no matter the cost. He sat down across from me, rubbing his temples. "You could have talked to me first." "I tried," I said quietly. "You weren't listening." He opened his mouth to speak, but then his phone buzzed. He looked at it. His eyes widened. His shoulders slumped. "She's losing followers," he whispered. I stared at him. Not, "You're hurt." Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "I'm sorry." Just, "She's losing followers." That was the moment the last thread between us snapped. Quietly. Painlessly. Like something that had been dying for a long time. The next 24 hours were a blur of movement online, comments multiplying, reactions pouring in, strangers stitching my video with their own outrage. For the first time in weeks, the world believed me. Not because I shouted louder. Not because I accused harder. But because the truth finally had light. Meanwhile, the silence from Mark and Alina grew heavier. Almost strategic. As if they were waiting for a moment to strike back. A moment to regain control. But the universe has a strange way of revealing the truth, especially when someone tries too hard to hide it. On Saturday morning, Mark walked into the kitchen looking tense, phone in hand. "We need to go to Alina's," he said. I didn't look up from my tea. "Why?" "She wants to talk." "Talk," I repeated. "Or corner me again?" His jaw tightened. "She's upset. People are attacking her online. They're reacting to her actions," I said. "Not mine." He ran a hand over his face, frustrated. "Please, Sarah. Just come. Clear the air." The old me might have said yes. The version of me who wanted peace even when it cost me pieces of myself. But that version of me was gone. Still, I agreed. Not for him. Not for her. For closure. For the truth to land where it belonged. When we arrived at Alina's apartment, the air already felt charged. Her living room was filled, 2 cousins, an aunt, One of Alina's close friends, even her neighbor who always seemed too invested in everyone's business. A small audience. A battlefield dressed like a family gathering. Alina sat in the center of the sofa, red-eyed but impeccably dressed, clutching a tissue like a prop. Her subtle performance. As soon as I entered, all conversations stopped. Dozens of eyes turned to me at once, some curious, some judgmental, some unreadable. Mark placed a hand on my back, gently pushing me forward. "Let's just resolve this," he whispered. But the word resolve tasted like manipulation now. Alina stood up slowly, her voice shaky and thin. "I can't believe you did this to me," she said, staring at me with wide, wounded eyes. "You humiliated me in front of thousands of people." I inhaled deeply, keeping my voice calm. "I posted the truth." She scoffed, a sound she didn't bother to hide. "You twisted everything. You made me look like a villain. You didn't show what you did to me." "What I did?" I repeated. One of her cousins stepped forward. "Yeah, you were rude to her. You insulted her at dinner. Did any of you see that happen?" I asked gently. Silence. They shifted uncomfortably. Alina's friend crossed her arms. "We don't need to see it. We know her. She wouldn't lie." I held their gaze. "I know she wouldn't lie to you," I said calmly. "But she lied about me." Gasps. Whispers. Alina's face twisted. "You're unbelievable," she snapped. "You're always playing the victim. Always acting innocent. You're manipulative. Controlling." My heart raced, not from fear, but from clarity. Because now I knew exactly what this was. Not a conversation. Not reconciliation. A public ambush. But she didn't know I came prepared. "Alina," I said quietly, "may I ask you one thing?" She folded her arms. "What? Why did you record me without telling me?" A collective ripple moved through the room. Her face blanched for a split second, barely noticeable, but I saw it. "I didn't," she snapped. "That's a lie." "A lie you want everyone here to believe," I said softly. "But you forgot something." I reached into my purse and pulled out Mark's hard drive. Her eyes widened. Mark stiffened. "What is that?" she whispered. "The originals," I said. "The raw files. The ones that show exactly how the recording happened." Mark stepped forward. "Sarah, let's not," but I held up a hand. "No. You wanted to resolve this? Let's resolve it." Alina shook her head rapidly. "You're bluffing. There's nothing on that drive." Then I said, turning to her family, "You won't mind if we all watch it together." Gasps erupted from the room. Her aunt frowned. "Alina, is that true? Was there a recording?" "She edited it," I said softly. She deleted the parts that showed her manipulating the situation. Louder whispers. Cousins murmuring. Her neighbor shifting closer to the TV. Mark stepped in front of me, voice low but urgent. "Please don't do this." I met his eyes. "Why not? You kept these videos. You hid the truth." He didn't deny it. Not once. I connected the drive to Alina's TV. The room fell silent. The first video played, Alina adjusting the camera, whispering, "Perfect. She'll look pathetic from this height." A collective shock sucked the air out of the room. Her aunt gasped, covering her mouth. Her cousins exchanged looks of disbelief. The second video, her pacing while insulting me. The third video, me entering, confused, unaware. The fourth, the full, unedited apology, including the part she cut out. I'm only apologizing because Mark asked me to. I pressed pause. Silence. Thick. Heavy. Choking. Alina stood frozen, eyes wild, breathing shallow. Her cousin whispered, You set her up?" The neighbor muttered, "Did you post that online?" "That chopped version." Her aunt inhaled slowly, trembling. "Alina, what have you done?" Alina pointed at me with shaking hands. "It's not what it looks like. She provoked me. She turned my brother against me. No one believed her. Not anymore. Not after seeing her own actions." Her friend stepped back from her. Her cousins refused to meet her eyes. Even the neighbor muttered, "This is messed up." Alina's body curled inward, like the truth itself was pushing her down. Mark sank onto the sofa, burying his face in his hands. "I didn't think she'd post it," he whispered. "I just wanted her to calm down." She gets emotional. I didn't want to fight. And what about my emotions? I asked softly. Who protected me? He looked up then, eyes red, voice cracking. I failed you, he whispered. It wasn't an excuse. Not a justification. Just a truth he'd been avoiding. Her aunt was the first to speak. You owe Sarah an apology, she said firmly. And you, she turned to Mark, owe her protection. Not silence. Alina covered her face and sobbed. Real tears. But not of guilt. Of exposure. Every lie she built, every illusion she crafted, all collapsing publicly. Not because I fought, but because the truth finally had nowhere left to hide. The room felt colder once the videos ended. Not because the temperature changed, but because the truth tends to pull warmth out of a space, leaving only raw honesty behind. No one spoke for several long seconds. Alina's sobbing filled the silence, broken, frantic, more panicked than remorseful. She wasn't grieving the pain she caused. She was grieving the mask she lost. Her aunt gently placed a hand on her shoulder and asked, Why, Alina? Why would you do this? Alina didn't answer. She just shook her head over and over, as if denial could rewind the last 10 minutes. Her cousins whispered among themselves. Someone recorded clips of the truth reveal from behind their phone. I hoped they'd post it, but I didn't ask. Her neighbor stepped away entirely, arms crossed, face tight with judgment. I simply stood there. I didn't defend myself, didn't gloat, didn't ask for pity. The truth was enough. Her aunt turned to me then. I'm so sorry, Sarah, she said softly. We believed her because, well, she's always been the dramatic one. But this crossed a line. I nodded politely. It's all right, I said. And I meant it. They were misled, but they weren't cruel. They were reacting to a lie, one crafted very skillfully. Her cousin stepped forward. You didn't deserve what happened online. None of it. I swallowed, feeling a knot form in my throat, but not from sadness. From relief. For the first time since the video went viral, someone acknowledged my pain out loud. And that validation felt like oxygen. As more of Alina's relatives processed what they'd seen, the tone of the room shifted dramatically. Her friend, who had earlier called me manipulative, cleared her throat. I think I owe you an apology too, she said quietly. I judged you based on her posts. I should have known better. I nodded again. It's okay, even though it wasn't. But forgiveness wasn't for them. It was for me, the space I needed to breathe again. Finally, Alina stood. Her face was blotchy, mascara streaking down her cheeks, hands trembling. You don't understand, she cried. She's been replacing me. Mark barely talks to me anymore. She took him away from me. Her voice cracked with something real, not empathy, not remorse, but fear of losing control. Her aunt's expression hardened. Your brother is a grown man. He chooses who he spends time with. Alina pointed at me again, hysterical. She wanted to turn him against me. So I had to defend myself. By lying, her cousin asked. By humiliating her in front of thousands of people? Alina's chest heaved. I didn't think it would get this big, she whispered, voice small. I just wanted her to stop acting like she's the center of everything. My lips parted slightly. I've barely spoken at family dinners, I said softly. You talk the most. You always have. She looked at me with something like shock, as if she hadn't realized how loud she was over everyone else. As if she mistook her own dominance for my intrusion. Mark finally stood. His voice was unusually quiet. Alina, you shouldn't have done this. Her head snapped toward him. But you said you'd help me. Her voice shook. You told me she was overreacting. You said you understood. His face drained of color. I didn't think you'd sabotage her. Or post videos. You told me to delete the originals, she shouted. A sharp silence sliced through the room. All eyes shifted to Mark. He froze. And that was the moment his carefully built neutrality collapsed. I said that because I panicked, he whispered. I didn't want to choose between you. You did choose, she snapped. By staying quiet, you chose her. And by attacking her, you chose yourself, he replied heavily. I watched him then, watched as realization settled over him like a heavy fog. He understood, finally, the depth of what he'd allowed. Alina's aunt stepped forward with a firmness that felt like leadership. "Alina," she said, "you owe Sarah a real apology. Not crocodile tears. Not excuses." Alina's mouth trembled. She looked at me, eyes raw and bloodshot, but still somehow angry. "I'm sorry," she forced out. Her voice small, unwilling, stiff. It wasn't real. Everyone could feel it. Her aunt sighed. "Try again." Alina swallowed hard. Then, quieter, but honest enough, "I'm sorry." She paused. "I shouldn't have recorded you. Or edited it. Or lied." My chest loosened, not because I trusted her again, but because I heard the truth spoken aloud. That was all I needed. "Thank you," I said softly. And I meant it. Not because I accepted her apology fully, but because closure sometimes looks like a small door gently closing, not a dramatic slam. When it became clear the confrontation was over, people began leaving. Some hugged me. Some apologized again. Some promised to defend me online. Some simply nodded, their faces filled with quiet regret. Alina sat curled on the couch, shaking, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. Her friend left without saying goodbye. Her neighbor avoided her entirely. Her cousins gathered their jackets in silence. Her aunt stayed behind. She approached me gently. "If you need anything," she said softly, "I'm here." I nodded, grateful. She turned to Mark. "Take care of your wife," she warned quietly. "And take responsibility." Then she left too. Once everyone was gone, the room felt hollow. Alina stared at the floor. Her tears had dried into streaks of gray down her cheeks. Mark stood beside me, hands in his pockets, looking lost. There were 3 of us in the room, but the silence between each pair of 2 was different. Mine and Alina's silence was done, burned through, final. Mine and Mark's silence was unfinished, wounded, needing something more than apologies, needing accountability, needing honesty. Mark and I walked out together. The hallway felt suffocatingly narrow. The elevator ride was too quiet. Even the parking lot echoed with a heaviness I'd never felt before. Finally, just as he reached for the car door, I said quietly, "We can't go back to how things were." He froze. "I know," he whispered. He opened the back door instead and placed the hard drive gently on the seat, like it was something fragile. Then he turned to me. "What now?" he asked. His voice trembled, not out of fear of losing me, but fear of facing what he'd allowed. I inhaled deeply. "The truth is out," I said calmly. "But the healing hasn't started yet." He nodded, eyes glistening. "I want to try," he whispered. I didn't answer. Not yet. Because healing is not an instant decision. It's a process. A choice repeated over time. A commitment to honesty, not comfort. And I wasn't ready to make that choice in a parking lot under fluorescent lights. The next morning, the world outside my window looked strangely unchanged: blue sky, soft sunlight, neighbors jogging as if the universe hadn't cracked open the night before. But inside me, something had shifted. Not broken. Not hardened. Shifted. I sat at the dining table with a cup of tea warming my hands. The house was silent. Too silent. Mark had slept on the couch. Not because I told him to, but because he knew sleeping beside me after what happened would feel like a lie neither of us wanted to tell. He walked into the kitchen slowly, like he wasn't sure he was welcome. "Morning," he said quietly. "Morning." He hesitated, then sat across from me. I noticed something in his face, not guilt anymore, but remorse. A deep, heavy remorse that didn't need theatrics. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Finally, he whispered, "Tell me what you need from me." I didn't answer immediately. I took a sip of tea, thinking carefully because for once, I wasn't rushing to ease tension or minimize conflict or fix what I didn't break. "I need honesty," I said finally. Not half-truths. Not silence. Not protection for people who hurt me. He nodded. "And I need space," I added. "To think. To breathe. To figure out if trust can be rebuilt." He swallowed hard. "Does space mean separation?" I met his eyes. "No. Just honesty without proximity." He blinked. "I can do that," he whispered. "I want to do that." But wanting and doing were not the same thing. I needed proof, not promises. Mark gave me space. Truly. He slept in the guest room. Cooked his own meals. Stopped going to Alina's. He texted updates instead of hovering. Going to work. Back by 6. Made dinner. Your plate is in the fridge if you want. Not intrusive. Not demanding. Just present. For the first time in years, there was no tension in the house. No forced peace. No pressure. Just silence. Clean. Uncomplicated. Healing didn't feel like a movie montage or a sudden epiphany. It felt like small breaths. Little moments. Slow thawing. Sometimes I cried in the shower, quietly, letting water hide the sound. Sometimes I stood by the window remembering how easily I apologized for years, how often I bent to make others comfortable. Sometimes I replayed Alina's whisper, perfect. She'll look pathetic from this height. Not because I wanted to torture myself, but because I needed to understand what hurt the most. It wasn't the humiliation. It wasn't the video. It was the realization that I had been trying to win the approval of someone who never wanted to see me as human, only as competition. 3 days later, there was a knock at my door. When I opened it, Alina's aunt stood there. Her expression was soft, almost maternal. "May I come in, dear?" she asked. I nodded and led her to the living room. She sat on the edge of the sofa like she had something heavy to place between us. "I've been thinking about you," she said, "and about everything that happened." I nodded, unsure what to say. Then she did something I didn't expect. She reached out and took my hand gently. "You handled yourself with grace," she whispered. "No yelling. No vengeance. Just truth." Her voice trembled. "You showed more dignity in 10 minutes than some people manage in a lifetime." My eyes stung suddenly. Compliments had become rare in this family, especially ones rooted in genuine respect. She squeezed my hand. "I know this won't undo what she did, but I want you to know, not all of us believe her lies. Not anymore." A tear slipped down my cheek. "Thank you," I whispered. She stayed for an hour, talking, listening, offering warmth in a family that so often ran cold. That evening, as I was watering the small plant on the windowsill, Mark appeared in the doorway. "Can we talk?" he asked softly. I nodded, setting the watering can aside. He sat on the floor instead of the chair, a quiet acknowledgement of humility. "I've been thinking a lot," he said. "About us. About Alina. About everything I ignored." I stayed silent. "I wasn't trying to hurt you," he continued. "But I did. Because I was afraid to disappoint her." That stung. The truth often does. "Alina, she raised me," he said. "She was all I had after our mom died. I've always felt responsible for her emotions, her reactions, her stability." He rubbed his hands together nervously. "But that made me blind. It made me choose her silence over your truth." He looked up, eyes red. "I failed you as a husband. This time, I didn't look away. I don't want to lose you," he whispered. "But I know. I might have." My throat tightened. "Mark," I said quietly, "I don't need perfection. But I do need partnership." He nodded quickly. "I understand." "Partnership means you don't hand me over to someone else's insecurities," I continued. "And you don't let me drown publicly while you hold the life raft." He swallowed hard. "I'm sorry," he whispered again. "I'm truly, deeply sorry." And for the first time, I felt the words land somewhere real. That night, I gave him the clearest sentence I'd spoken in weeks. Your relationship with your sister cannot come before your responsibility to our marriage. He didn't argue, didn't defend, didn't offer excuses. He just nodded, slow, deliberate. "I understand," he said. "And I'm willing to set boundaries she won't like, because losing you would hurt more." It wasn't a resolution. Not yet. But it was a beginning. A seed. A willingness to grow. I didn't check her profiles right away. But the world talks, especially online. Within days, her follower count dropped dramatically. Her comments were filled with people calling out her manipulation. Some unfollowed quietly, some loudly. Her reputation, carefully curated for years, cracked like brittle glass. I didn't celebrate it. It didn't bring me joy. But it brought balance. And balance is its own kind of justice. One morning, I sat outside on the balcony with tea, watching the sky shift from pink to gold. For the first time in months, my chest didn't feel heavy. The air felt lighter, my mind quieter, my heart steady. Healing wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. A return to myself. A reclaiming of my voice. My dignity. My peace. I wasn't the same woman who entered Alina's apartment weeks ago with trembling hands. I was someone new, or maybe someone I had forgotten I could be. Strong without shouting. Gentle without being stepped on. Honest without apology. Healing didn't arrive like a sunrise, bright and sudden. It came slowly, like dawn creeping along the edge of a curtain, a soft light I didn't notice until one morning I realized the darkness wasn't as heavy anymore. I started going for walks again. Long ones. Sometimes with music, sometimes with silence. Letting the rhythms of the world steady the parts of me that had been shaken loose. Neighbors waved. Birds hopped along fences. Leaves rustled overhead. And inside me, something quiet, something bruised, began to mend. Each step reminded me I had survived something meant to break me. Not with rage. Not with violence. But with truth. That kind of healing leaves a mark, not a wound, a reminder. A week after everything happened, Mark knocked softly on the door frame of the living room. "Can I sit with you?" he asked. I nodded. He sat beside me on the floor, leaning against the couch. We both stared out the window at the street lamps, beginning to glow in the early evening. "I talked to her," he said quietly. My breath froze. "What did she say?" I asked. "She's angry. Embarrassed. Ashamed, but still blaming you." He rubbed a hand over his face. "She said you should have just apologized properly." I shook my head slowly. "I apologized for something I didn't do," I said. "She wanted something else. Something deeper." He nodded, shame tugging his features downward. "I know," he whispered. "And I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." I believed him, not because his words were dramatic, but because they weren't. They were small. Quiet. Like a man finally waking up in a room he didn't realize had been dark for years. That night, I said what needed to be said. "I want a marriage," I told him softly. "Not a triangle." He nodded immediately. "I understand." "And I want boundaries." He swallowed. "Name them." I took a breath. "First, no conversations about me behind my back. Not with your sister. Not with anyone. Done. Second, no secrets. No hidden recordings. No protecting her from the consequences of her actions." Agreed. "Third, your loyalty belongs here first," I said, touching the space between us. "With us. With me." He didn't argue. Didn't hesitate. "I know," he whispered. "And I'm sorry you ever doubted it." "But I did," I said gently. He flinched. "And trust isn't rebuilt with apologies alone." He nodded. "I'll prove it," he said. "Every day. For as long as it takes." His voice trembled, not with fear of me leaving, but with fear of not deserving another chance. And that honesty, quiet, vulnerable, was the beginning of something real. 2 days later, I received a message request. From an unknown account. It was Alina. Her text was short. "You ruined my life." For a moment, old insecurities tried to claw their way in, the fear of being disliked, the instinct to fix what isn't mine, the buried desire to keep peace even at the cost of my dignity. But then I exhaled slowly. I typed only 2 words, "Tell the truth." She didn't respond. And I realized something profound. Her downfall wasn't my doing. It was her choices. Her cruelty. Her lies. I simply exposed what she hid. Truth is not destruction. It is exposure. And exposure only burns those who fear the light. That evening, as I sat on the couch scrolling absent-mindedly, a new message appeared from someone I never expected. Alina's mother's sister, Auntie Sumaya, the matriarch of their extended family. Her message was gentle. "Dear, I watched everything. You handled it with more grace than most people could. Please know you are still part of this family." A warmth spread across my chest. Not because I wanted their approval, but because I finally felt seen. Not as an outsider. Not as an enemy. Not as a villain. But as someone who had been wronged and stood back up with dignity. Sometimes healing begins when the right person says, "I believe you." Mark began showing up in ways I didn't expect. Not with grand gestures. Not with rehearsed apologies, but with consistency. He attended therapy, alone at first, then later asking if I wanted to join for a session. He stopped jumping at every notification from Alina. He cooked dinner and set the table carefully, placing a folded napkin by my plate the way I always liked. He listened, really listened, when I told him how invisible I had felt for months. He held my hand gently during a walk one afternoon and whispered, "I see you. I'm sorry I didn't before." And slowly, the wall I had built didn't disappear, but a small door opened. Healing isn't linear. Some days I trusted him. Some days I didn't. Some days I felt whole. Other days I felt the ghost of old wounds. But every day I felt stronger. Not because he changed, but because I did. About a month later, Auntie Sumaya invited us for dinner. "Just a small gathering," she said. "No drama. Just peace." I hesitated. Mark waited for my decision. Finally, I said, "Okay." We arrived at the aunt's house, a warm, lived-in home filled with the scent of curry and freshly baked bread. There were a few relatives present, polite, gentle, careful in their approach. Alina wasn't there. A relief I didn't fully realize I needed. During dinner, someone raised a quiet toast. To truth, they said softly, and to growth. Everyone clinked their glasses. I felt tears prick my eyes, not from sadness, but from something gentler, closure. Real, genuine closure. I wasn't reclaiming my place in the family. I was choosing where I wanted to stand and where I no longer needed to. For the first time, I wasn't fighting for acceptance. I was choosing myself. After dinner, Mark and I walked to the car. The night was cool, the moon thin and silver above us. He took my hand hesitantly, as if asking permission with the gesture. I didn't pull away. I didn't fully hold on either. But I let the moment exist. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" I asked softly. "For giving me the chance to be better than I've been." I looked up at the moon. "Everyone deserves a chance," I said. "But not everyone gets unlimited ones." "I know. I'm choosing to try," I said gently. "But this time, I'm choosing myself too." He nodded, eyes soft. "I'll earn it." I believed he would try. And whether we rebuilt fully or simply became two people who walked parallel paths, I knew this. I wasn't walking alone anymore. I had myself, my truth, my dignity, and no one could take that away again. Some nights now, when the house is quiet and the world finally stops pulling at me, I sit by the window with a cup of warm tea and think about everything that's happened. Not with anger, not with bitterness, but with a kind of soft understanding I didn't have before all this. I've learned something important, something I wish someone had told me earlier in life. Sometimes the people who hurt you the most are the ones you are trying the hardest to love. And sometimes, the apology they demand isn't for peace. It's for power. But here's the quiet truth I carry now. You don't owe anyone your silence just because you love them. You don't have to shrink to make someone else feel tall. And you never, ever need to apologize for defending your own dignity. The day I chose truth over approval was the day I came home to myself. Not because I won a fight, not because someone else lost, but because I finally realized my voice matters even when it trembles. My story matters even when someone tries to rewrite it. And my peace matters even when others demand I give it away. So if you've ever been blamed for something you didn't do, if someone ever twisted your kindness into weakness, if you've ever apologized just to stop someone else from breaking, I hope my story reminds you of this. You are allowed to choose yourself. Now I want to ask you, what would you have done if you were in my place? Would you have stayed silent? Or would you have spoken your truth too? Tell me in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay with me for the next chapter. Because sometimes, healing begins with a story we didn't know we needed.